Republican hopefuls and even President Obama weighing in on the Trayvon Martin story. Here's the president on Friday in the Rose Garden.
If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And, you know, I think they are right to expect that all of us as Americans are going to take this with the seriousness it deserves.
Okay, this was a very interesting conversation that I'm going to play for you now. I spoke with CNN contributor Will Cain and CNN.com contributor Elsie Granderson, also a senior writer at ESPN, and I asked them if the president should have commented on the case. They did not hold back. Here it is.
A lot of people are tripping over themselves trying not to say race, trying not to talk about color. You know what? That's a vital part of this conversation. That's a vital part of this entire scenario. And so to assume that President Obama, a black man in the United States, would not have a reaction to what happened to Trayvon Martin is incredibly ridiculous. And so it's natural for him to respond to that.
I wonder if the situation was reversed, if President Bush, let's just say, pick a president who's of a different color, had commented on this and said, you know, I remember having, when my son was 17 years old, would people be saying the same thing about it? Because that's essentially what the president was saying. If I had a son, meaning he'd look like Trayvon, you know? Yeah.
You know, it's really, really disheartening to me to see, you know, Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum try and politicize this.
We're going to get to them. I'm going to play those sound bites, Elsie, but I want to, and then we can talk about it. But Will, what do you think the president should have commented?
I have mixed feelings about it, Don. I mean, I think Elsie makes a pretty compelling argument for President Obama stepping into what's become a very divisive issue. But my whole problem with this case, Don, and my whole problem with anyone, for that matter, commenting on this case, from the president down to Elsie and myself, is there's still not a full spectrum of information here. There's not a finished investigation. And I realize much of the complaint has been that's what it's about. There's not a good investigation, but there's still this hole in the timeline. Everything looks to be condemning. Everything looks to be condemning towards George Zimmerman, but we don't have all the facts. Bottom line, we don't have all the facts.
Will? What more do you need? Just tell me, what do you need beyond the 911 tape?
There's still a moment in this timeline, in this case, where George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin were face to face. What happened at that moment? Was George Zimmerman attacked? Does he have a legitimate claim to self-defense? Obviously, that's what he contends.
Well, you cannot tell me you thought that skinny 17-year-old boy was going to kill, without a weapon, that big, grown man. That is an absolutely ridiculous stance to take. I hear what you're saying about all the facts, but if you just look at the physicality of it all, it's a ridiculous argument to me.
Okay,
well, one of us wants to be judge, jury, and executioner, and I just want to have some. I just want to go slow.
Let me jump in here.
I don't understand why going slow sparks outrage.
Well, I think you guys are mixing up the two things. What the president commented on was the feelings of the parents, and you cannot help but feel for the parents in any situation. You cannot help but feel for anyone who loses a child. That's what many people in the country are commenting on, and that's what's raised the emotion. The whole thing about what happened, yes, well, the investigation does have to play out, but I think what most people are commenting on and what most people feel here are anytime someone loses a child, it is terribly horrific, and why wouldn't anyone want to comment on that? How could that not touch any person to say something about it?
Well, obviously, everything you just said is true, but children die every day in this country. Children die under horrible circumstances every day, and we don't talk about it on TV. My only point...
We talk about it all the time. I just got through doing a story on the kids who died in Afghanistan, and we were talking about it. The president has commented on that.
I don't think there's an intelligent rebuttal to my point of view here, that all we're doing is saying, all I'm saying is, we don't have a full set of facts. We don't know everything that happens. The only response I get is outrage and emotion. And all I'm telling you is outrage and emotion aren't good enough. There's a legal system. We are innocent until proven guilty in this country. I am also telling you, everything looks bad for George Zimmerman here. It looks ugly.
Will, we get that. That's not what, hang on, Elsie, let me do this. That is not what we're saying. Of course the investigation has to play out. That's what every single person has been saying that I've seen on television, every commentator. And everyone has talked about the reports from Sooner, the attorney, saying that this guy was attacked, that his client, in fact, was the victim here. We understand that, but that's, while we're at this moment, I think people are saying that there is a realization about profiling in America that people don't understand. Let the investigation play out for sure. There's a conversation. Hang on. There's a conversation that people are afraid to hear and don't want to talk about as it comes to profiling. Go ahead, Will.
No. See, you shifted the debate to racial profiling, and that's not the conversation we were having. You asked me a question about what people should be commenting on this case, including President Obama and us here sitting in these seats. And what I'm telling you is, unless you're getting on to me, and you guys are chastising me for simply not joining in outrage and emotion, that's my job. My job now is to simply come on TV and express outrage and emotion. What I'm telling you is the public has made mistakes in these kind of cases before. In the Duke lacrosse case, the whole country condemned some guys without a full set of facts. What I'm telling you is, I think a responsible person in my seat, much less in a
but
seat
you're
in
expressing
public
outrage
office,
in your
needs to
response
comment
now. You're expressing outrage. I'm telling you the difference between the two.
He's hot.
You're getting the two
because
mixed
I am
up.
outraged at the irrationality you're asking from me. You're asking me to come on TV and be irrational and
there is absolutely nothing irrational about what we're talking about right now, Will. What I really find irrational is your difficulty in even talking about race. Your difficulty when it felt
race
forced.
hasn't even been part of this conversation
Race
so far.
is always part of this conversation. That's the problem. You're trying to put these items into vacuums as if they're individuals and separated. They're not. We have a very long, centuries-long history of racial tension in this country. So to talk about this subject matter and pretend as if you can neatly compartmentalize things like that, like this is racial profiling and this is the law and this is the stand your ground. No, they're all integrated. It's all a part of it.
Let me
finish.
Let him finish and then I'll let you go.
So as far as the emotional response to it, you're a dad. I'm a dad. You should have an emotional response to this. That boy sat on a cold slate for 3 days, and the police did nothing to help find his parents. You should have an emotional reaction to that, if nothing else. That's what you're feeling. That's what you're getting from
My job is not to come on TV and be emotional. And I can tell you this as far as the race component. If George Zimmerman were black and Trayvon Martin were white, I would grant George Zimmerman, the black man, just the same benefit of the doubt that I am granting any defendant in any case. Race, for me, being a responsible commentator, has nothing to do with this.
I don't want to beat up.
Remind you that race has a lot to do with it.
I don't want to beat up on you, Will, but you're outraged at the outrage. And again, I think you're right.
I don't even know what that means.
No, you said I'm outraged that everyone is so outraged about it. I think you're right that...
I didn't. I said I'm outraged that you guys are requiring that of me, that you're acting like I'm being irresponsible by not being outrageous.
Nope, do not put... That's not what I said to you. I'm not requiring that of you at all. That's not what I said. I told you what the president was coming on, and I think that's what I told you about the emotion that people are feeling. But as far as talking about the merits of the case, I agree with you. I think that we have to wait for the investigation to play out. But every time someone comments or talks about the emotion or the reality of racism in the country or the reality of profiling, it doesn't mean that they can't speak to that truth as well.
You didn't ask me about profiling, Don.
Well, you said
you didn't ask me about
you
profiling.
said that we should not comment on this case when it comes to that.
On this case.
Yeah, but you went there.
Okay,
when
look,
you
bottom line in the end, I want the viewers to trust me on this. I will not comment on anything without knowing what I'm talking about, without knowing the facts of every single thing I talk about. Hold me to that standard, from my political opinion to my opinion on cases like this. This, to me, has nothing to do with race. What it has to do with is facts.
And the fact is, race is a big part of this conversation.
Okay. Are we done? Are we done? We're good. Well,
this has been so hot, the camera's going to blow up. Have you heard this thing buzzing the whole segment long? Seriously, have you heard it buzzing?
Yeah, I love it. But you know what I like about this? I think that it's good to have these sorts of conversations. And Will and I are friends. LZ and I are friends. All three of us are friends. And we talk like this offline as we do on television. And
exclamation points always.
So
this is about race.
The country should be talking like this as well. So thank you guys. We should all be as honest. We don't have to castigate each other just for being honest, and we don't have to hate each other just because we may disagree. And for those of you who were concerned, we wanted you to see this. Will tweeted this photo right after the segment ended, showing all of us that he agree without being disagreeable. As a matter of fact, they say there was a little beer summit across the street at the Time Warner Center where they talked more. Just another reason why we look forward to talking with them every Sunday evening right here in the CNN newsroom. Have those conversations yourselves and get it out. It's good. It's important. Okay, moving on now. After 5 heart attacks, former Vice President Dick Cheney finally has a new outlook on life. We'll tell you why. That report is next.